Welcome back to the Code 1098 True Crime Podcast. We took a little break and now we are back. About a year ago, Code 1098 started covering the disappearance and suspected murder of Rosalio Gutierrez Jr. This week, we have a special guest who was one of the key witnesses in the murder trial of Zachariah Anderson. Anderson was found guilty at trial and convicted of murdering Jr. I would like to introduce Mike Campbell. Welcome to Code 1098, Mike. Since the conviction of Zachariah Anderson, there has been this online campaign about free Zach, and Zach was wrongfully convicted, and there's people leveling accusations at a number of people that were a part of this case in one way or another, including you, right?
Yes.
And there's lots of rumors out there about these things, especially in your situation about your relationship with Junior, and people have brought up things, about money being owed, and, you visiting Zach's house with one of your guys' other friends, and just different things like that. And so today I am hoping that we can talk about some things and set the record straight so that it's straight from the horse's mouth, and people can stop with maybe some of the extra stuff that's been being put out there that doesn't really have any forensic or evidentiary support behind it.
Right.
So I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is, what was your friendship or your relationship with Junior like? What was that? What did that look like?
It was good. I mean, we hung around each other since high school. So, I mean, we had a good relationship. Never really had a falling out ever. So, I mean, all these false accusations, it's really making me angry. Like, I don't understand why, people would even assume that or whatever. I mean, obviously, they're not in my everyday life when we were together. We worked a lot, so we hung around a lot. But yeah, I just don't appreciate none of these, comments about me. I have a family, like I got kids. So, I mean, I just want that stuff to stop.
And I think that's fair. So you guys were friends for a very, very long time.
Yeah, long time.
In all those years, were you like off and on? Would you guys have like disagreements and not speak to each other? Or was this more just like a typical friendship? Like when you had time for each other, you were homies, and when you didn't, you were still homies from a distance?
Yeah, like, everyday life, as you get older, you don't see your friends every day. People
Right.
got lives, people got families. So, but like I said before, I didn't have any type of falling out with him. The only situation I ever had with him is that he underpaid a friend of mine that did a job for him, and he knew better, and I just felt like he was being greedy with not even much money, like $600 something. So he paid, my buddy only like $150. So of course someone's going to be upset when that's, a terrible amount of money for that much of a hard job. That's...
So there was one of the things that was brought up, and it was brought up during trial, is about money being owed between you and Junior.
Right.
And so from what you just said, it sounds like it wasn't about money owed necessarily between the two of you, but that you brought one of your friends into the situation to work a job with him, and your friend felt shorted by the amount of money that he was paid by Junior for the job.
Right.
And so you addressed it with Junior, in a way like
I would
like
to
this
anybody.
is like
that's
if the
bogus,
shoe like if the shoe was
Yeah.
on the other foot, like if he was the guy who got shortchanged by the other guy, you'd be addressing it with the other guy.
Right, exactly.
And what was the result of this? Like, did you guys settle it? Did you
Oh, of
guys not
course.
speak
Like,
for some time, or
well,
like what happened?
like I said, I got the job from my buddy. I just kind of helped my buddy out do it. And I was basically doing it for a favor for my friend. And, just helping him out and whatever, get it done. And, I let them hash out the money situation. I don't know what, happened between that, because that's none of my business. So, but that was the only situation I've ever, had a bad experience with him. Nobody's perfect in this world, but at the same time, he was a good person. Like.
So it sounds like you addressed it with them, but it wasn't like an issue in your friendship. You kind of left them to work it out.
Yeah.
But you let him know that you knew of the situation and how you felt about it.
Right, exactly. Because I speak my mind on any type of situation. Like, that's just how I am.
So it just, that was the situation, and you carried on with your friendship as usual.
Always, yep, definitely.
And you did business together like you had in the past after that, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it didn't really change anything, right? So the fact that this continuously kept getting brought up to you, I could only imagine how frustrating that alone could be, right?
Definitely.
Because you're like spelling this out for people, right? And to be a witness, typically you're interviewed by the side that calls you. Sometimes you're interviewed by both sides. Did that happen for you before the trial?
Only by the DA.
So you were interviewed by the prosecution,
defense.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure during that time, did you spell this out for them?
Of course.
And
I told them everything that I knew. I offered to give them my phone.
Did you give them a
4
statement?
hours they had it.
So they did have
I had
your phone.
nothing to hide, absolutely nothing to hide. Like,
so it's safe to say you fully cooperated in every way possible with the investigation.
Completely.
Okay. One of the other things that was brought up was like, why were you and your friend Brandon, or yours and Junior's friend Brandon, at Zach's house after Rosalio disappeared? And I understand that, it was brought up during the trial, but I feel like it was kind of limited. Like, it was almost boxed in as to what they were asking you. And it's not that you didn't divulge anything. I just felt like maybe they weren't asking the right questions. So I guess for me, like, one of the things people are saying is like, why were you there, right? Like, were you planting evidence, that type of thing? That's one of the accusations that people are putting online. Like, it's
Right.
part of the Free Zach campaign, we'll call it, online right now. And I'm just saying, so like, why were you and Brandon going to Zach's house after you find out that Rosalio's missing? Like, what made you decide to do that?
Well, first off, I already knew about the issues with this dude, Zach, from Junior, because he told me about there's potential GPS tracking systems that
So
dude
Junior
bought. So Junior had spoke to me about this before,
anything
probably
happened.
week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know exactly, but before, that's why I had suspicion. I mean, I even told the detectives when I went to check my buddy's house, when, a lady that we used to work for told me that she hasn't heard from him in a few days. So, of course, I'm going to go check, because that's what type of friend I am. And I did, and that's when I discovered the situation, because there was detectives there and whatever. And then
Because Sadie hadn't contacted you.
Right.
Or nobody contacted you to
tried
say.
contacting her, obviously, after I left Junior's apartment, but she was
Okay,
being
so
interviewed, I believe, by the detectives.
Just for the timeline's sake, okay? Because that's another thing that people keep pressing on. Different parts of the timeline of events that took place from right before when he went missing and what happened after. So you don't know Junior is missing yet because nobody's told you, right?
Right.
Like Sadie doesn't
the
call
investor
you.
that we were working with is the one that informed me that asking me if I had heard from him, and I said no because I believe it was, I can't remember what day it was. Was it Tuesday or something that I found out? But I think she got a hold of me. Maybe it would probably no. It was that Tuesday that she got a hold of me and was asking me if I had spoken to him, and I didn't. And then I went and paid my truck payment, I believe, and then I drove past his apartment and I seen all the caution tape and detectives and this and that. So obviously I stopped and basically told them everything that I knew.
So until the investigator calls you and asks you if you've heard from Junior, you know nothing.
Investor. Yeah, it was an investor. Like it was who we worked for. Like,
oh, so it was someone like he did work for.
Right.
And they called you and say, he's not answering me and I haven't heard from him in 3 days.
Yeah, because I think he was supposed to do something for her.
Like during that time when he was missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And
maybe that Monday or something, I don't know.
Before that occurred, when had been the last time that you had interacted with Junior? Like either via text, in person, ran into him out, whatever.
I have a terrible memory, but from what I remember from the court, they were saying that Friday or Saturday was like the last time I was with him or something like that. And one of them days it was all the kids, his kids, my kids, had like a little pizza party at my house. And but it wasn't normal for me to not talk to him for a couple of days and stuff like that. So especially because I was working for other people as well. I wasn't just having Junior for my main source of income. When you're a subcontractor, normally you work for quite a few different people.
So now back to my original question as to why you and Brandon went to Zach's house. So now we've laid out that this woman, this investor person that Junior was doing work for, calls you and says he's MIA. I can't find him. I need to know what's going on. This is a problem. You end up driving past his apartment complex when you're out running errands that day, and you see all the caution tape and the police everywhere. So you pull up on the police and you're like, what's going on? This is my friend's
friend
apartment.
Like,
yeah.
I felt like I stepped on my heart getting out of my truck because it just dropped. I knew something was wrong.
Well, I mean, what do you think when there's crime scene tape? Either someone's dead or they got real close to dead, right? Because there's a whole lot of evidence in that space that they're going to have to collect.
And somebody walking in the ET suit. So
yeah, that anybody with half a common knowledge of ever watched a crime show, no, that's not a good sign, right?
Exactly.
Something bad is going on in there. So you see this, you give information to the investigators and everything, and then is it that day, the next day, a few days, how long after you go to the apartment, you find out exactly he's missing and everything, do you go to Zach's house?
If I'm not mistaken, I think I went home. Erica knew something was really wrong, and just by the look on my face. So my buddy Brandon already had called me, and because of the post that I had made, because I believe I made the post right after I left Junior's house, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I really don't remember time frame, but so he called me because he was in town, and he said, "What's up with your post?" And I said, "Man, I don't know, So I he was like, well, all right, well, I'll be over. So I had Erica look up public knowledge, because you can look up anybody's name and, you know, get their address or pretty much anything you want to know about them, and got his address, because that's just how me and my friends will look out for each other. It ain't, you know, we're no gang members or anything like that. We're just close friends. So, of course, we're gonna investigate ourselves. You know, no disrespect to any police I don't know. I just would do that for any of my friends.
Well, I'm not,
So,
I'm not faulting you for that, because you know that there's this issue, because in the weeks, 1 to 2 weeks leading up to Junior's disappearance, he's telling you all these crazy things about Zach Anderson.
Correct.
That he's Sadie's ex. He's crazy. There's GPS devices being used. Someone went through my truck. Stuff was missing. He shared all these things with you, right?
Right.
Like all these different
and
things.
I basically told him to be careful, you know, because you don't know what anybody's capable of.
So now he's missing. You find out he's missing. And I think they tried to zero in on this, I feel, or make something of it during the trial, was that you had Erica, which you explained was a girlfriend at the time, that you had her help you, or she had already gathered intel somehow about where Zach lived and things like that.
Correct.
And so they tried to kind of zero in on that, I feel, or make something of it at the trial. But like, we live in a technology age where information is just so readily available if you look for it. And even something as simple as, you know, court records and stuff give people's addresses, and you're not supposed to use it for things like that, but we all know people out there do.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's there. People do stuff with it they're not supposed to all the time. So I don't see how people are trying to use that so far, based on what you've said, to fuel these accusations or motives or anything you may have had. So now you've gathered this information. One of your best friends is missing. Your group, your clique, he's part of it. You know, all of you guys are talking. You and Brandon decide, we're gonna go to Zach's.
Correct.
And we have the address. We're driving to Mequon. And you go.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you go to Zach's?
Because that's who I believe had something to do with it. So I went to his house. That's exactly what I did. And, you know, I went there to talk to him. You know, I don't know what would have happened if he would have even told us if he was him, you know, like, but I'm always going to protect myself, you know, at the end of the day. Like, if he approached me, of course, then we're fighting. But if he would have just talked to me like a man, that's what I went there to talk to him, you know, man to man. Like, and actually to read his conscience as well. And that looked pretty fucked up, in my opinion. He looked really fucking scared, like he did something wrong. So that told me right there that I felt like guilty as fuck. And, you know, you might not have done it yourself, buddy, but you definitely had help or something. But it is what it is, you know. Like, I went to his house, like I said, to talk to him, you know. I can't predict the future. I don't know, you know, what I would have done if he would have told me it was him. But again, I know for sure if I ended up missing or something like that, I'd have a few of my buddies looking for me. So, and I'm sure Zach's got a few buddies of his own that would probably do the same for him.
You have addressed things like, you know, how you came to find out. You've addressed the money situation that people try to make something out of. You have addressed the whole why you and Brandon showed up at his house and what your intentions, you know, were or could have been, you know, depending. And the reason you went there is because you'd been told by your friend that he was being harassed, stalked by this crazy guy that was the ex of Sadie, which is one of the women he was seeing at the time. Your friend comes up missing, so you go looking for the most obvious suspect, right? And I don't think there's anything extraordinary about that. Well, and you brought up being a contractor and tiling and flooring and bathrooms and things like that. Do you ever install or remove carpet?
Yeah, I have, of course.
Because you do floors, right?
Right.
And you specialize in tiles, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I never do carpet. I remove it. So I never install the carpet. I never learned how to do that. I just did like hard surfaces, wood floors, laminate, tile.
Okay. So when there was this little tidbit was brought up during the trial about you having a carpet in a van or in your trailer.
Yeah, my trailer. Yeah, this guy that used to drive my sister around, she had a problem, and she was picked up by this company, and she went every morning to get her methadone. So
your sister was an addict.
She was
and
an addict.
She was getting treatment, and she'd get picked up
by this John guy that
drove a van for some clinic, and she'd get taken to the clinic to get her methadone
with a bunch
while
of
she was working through her sobriety.
Right. Okay. Exactly.
And that's the guy
this
who
is the
made
guy
the
that supposed that wrote a statement saying that I had a rolled up carpet in my trailer, and he had asked me if he could have it, and I'm like, I took it out for a reason. It's filled with dog piss. You wouldn't want it, So normally people take out carpet because they have to, because it's terrible. Not many people just change it because they want to.
They wait for it to be worn
or whatever, right?
In some way, yeah.
I could say 99% of the time when I've had numerous different types of carpet rolls in my trailer, that it was terrible. So, I mean, that's something that not everybody knows. So, I mean, of course, the defense is going to try to say some crazy shit, saying that,
Well,
but that was the John guy that said it. But, whatever. He was probably paid.
From my perspective, watching the trial, what I seen was one of the big things is that there was a piece of carpet missing from Junior's apartment, or an area rug, something like that. A larger piece of rug or carpeting was removed, right? And it's suspected that's how they removed Junior's body from the crime scene. So, from my perspective, having that fact in my mind, which was always made kind of public knowledge from once they released the statement about the case and things like that, and people started talking about it. And then they brought up a witness seeing you, a flooring guy, with rolls of carpet or a roll of carpet in your work trailer.
Right. And the funny part is when you tear up carpet, you cut it in like 4-foot sections, 3-foot sections, and roll it, and then you duct tape it up. So if there was a body in it, you know what I'm saying, more than half of the damn body is going to be sticking out it, Yeah,
and you don't use sections of carpet
murderer
to roll
would leave a body in a trailer, you know what I mean? And or bloody, like it just made no sense. And I get, that's their job, that they had to.
Well, and again, you said you fully cooperated. So at some
100%.
point, did you still have this trailer?
Yeah, I still have that trailer to this day.
So if the police would have showed up at any point and said, "Can we
put the black light on it?
Yeah,
do what you gotta do.
Can we test it to make sure can we rule it out for blood splatter?" You would have been like, "Absolutely."
Well, of course.
You'd still invite that to this day.
Until I'm dead, I would.
See, and this is,
I have nothing to hide.
And I think that's important for people to hear right from you.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
you've maintained all along. Like, it's got to be awful. Like, it's one thing to be accused of something like murder, right? An awful murder like this. It's a whole nother level to be accused of murdering one of your own best friends when there was literally nothing bad about your friendship. Like, no bad bloods, no nothing happening.
You know, we're all human beings, and, you know, like, I just don't understand that people just would judge somebody off of just what they hear, you know, trying to say even Junior was a bad guy, you know, like, everybody has their faults. Nobody's perfect. You know, Junior liked to hang out with lots of women, you know, which is, you know, something that he would have to deal with.
But again, that doesn't, even if that's the case, that's not even relevant, you know?
Right.
Like, people shouldn't even be talking about that because he's the victim.
Right.
And if people want to talk about anything, like, what are you going to say? Because the reality is, if he wouldn't have came up missing, he would have carried on his ways, right? Seeing multiple women at once.
Until you grow or whatever. You know, everybody grows.
Until he decided that was not how he wanted to go about life anymore. He was going to live how he lived.
Right.
Like, and that's something we're all entitled to do. And it may not feel good for the women that he was seeing.
Right.
But we all know somebody like that, right? And it's just, it is what it is. And I think that it was kind of in poor taste with them trying to bring
portray
up
him, and try to
in that way, because especially, you know, when you take into account Sadie. Now, I've never spoken with Sadie directly. Maybe hopefully one day that'll change, but I just feel like a lot of people were really coming for her. And
well, they were coming at numerous people. Like they tried to say the girl that he was supposed to meet, they were like, oh, well, what about her? Like, that's what I was seeing on the internet anyway. And, you know, they were obviously trying to hit it at every angle, right?
And
I mean, that's their job.
My question becomes, like, when is enough?
Right.
He was, you know, whether we like it or not, they are going to have these campaigns where they're going to accuse you so harshly, so intently of being an alternative murderer to the convicted murderer. They really need to have something to kind of stand on with that. You have a family.
Right.
You're a business owner.
Correct.
This is happened in your community where you grew up, where you live, where you know everybody.
Right. I could potentially lose customers because of it. You know, like if somebody seen the video and, you know, remotely believe anything that they're trying to say, like, you know, oh, why would they want me in their house? You know, I potentially killed somebody, you know, like, and that's just gonna obviously take money out of my pocket and my family. So it's very frustrating. And then when you have your 10-year-old son saying, what happens if he gets off, Daddy? Is he gonna come harm us? Like, you know, a lot of people don't understand what that's done to me. Like, this whole situation has really affected me and my children, and let alone Zach's kids and Junior's kids. I mean, they're gonna have to live without a father, like, for the rest of their lives. You know, stepfather is great, but it's not the same. So, I mean, that's just it's terrible. It's a terrible situation, and, you know, my conscience is clean. So, you know, for any of you believers, go ahead and keep believing their lies if you want.
I don't think people really are considering, when they're making these accusations, the effect that these things have on people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want anybody to think bad of me. I mean, if you ask anybody that knows me, they're definitely not going to tell you I'm a bad person. I can guarantee you that.
Hopefully people will stop with the false narratives.
That's what I want.
And the bogus accusations. And maybe, just maybe, put some attention on locating Rosalio's remains.
Definitely.
Because that alone could expand, the story that's been formed based on evidence so far. And I feel like if anybody wants to put their energy into something, it should really be that.
Right. Exactly.
And
because people got to understand, losing a family member, like, put them in that situation. I guarantee you that they're going to have a whole different outlook on a situation like that.
I appreciate you taking the time to come in and set the record straight on Code 1098, and hopefully your message gets out there and this will help people to reconsider leveling these accusations and what is tantamount to a smear campaign against you, to rest and ease up off of it and go seek out some actual facts like the case file and evidence and things of that nature.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Having an extensive background in the legal field allowed me to better understand the hows and whys of this trial, more than likely better than someone else who lacks the intimate knowledge of Wisconsin law, trial procedure, and local rules. Now, with that being said, it is the job of the prosecution to try to give the jury as much of a picture as they can that Zach did it. And because that is what they believe, and that is what the evidence has shown them, and that is what they are going to argue. Now, with that being said, it's also the job of the defense to counter the prosecution's evidence in order to try to create reasonable doubt and introduce potential for any alternative theories that could make the jury believe that their client might actually be innocent. I sincerely hope that all of the individuals who continue to stick their necks out and sling mud at the victims of Zachariah Anderson's crimes are truly exercising their due diligence and not basing the serious accusations they have made off of internet searches and the word of a convicted criminal. And before people jump on the timeline bandwagon, it was well established that Zach owned multiple phones, which is not unusual for someone involved in the drug game on any level. Furthermore, avoiding traffic cams is easier than one might think. I will leave you with this. Whatever you believe, be sure to have substantial facts and stand behind your allegations. Otherwise, it might be considered baseless and slanderous. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our first episode of Code 1098 After Dark. Follow us so you never miss an update.